In today's episode, we dive deep into the fascinating annual life of deciduous trees, moving far beyond the simple answer of it's fall. Discover the complex biology of photosynthesis and transpiration and how these processes necessitate leaf shedding. We'll explore the critical differences between deciduous and coniferous trees, unpack the vital role of arboreal hydraulics in nutrient transport, and see how the planet's diverse climates dictate a tree's survival strategy. Essential science and environmental context for curious minds. Welcome back to Why Is That, Dad? The show where we unpack the science, history, and culture of everyday questions. I'm your host, Phil, and I'm here with my daughter, Cecilia, today. Last time she was on, she asked why the sky was blue, but she also primed us for today's fall-inspired question. What's your question?
Every year, the tree's leaves turn into all sorts of beautiful colors. It's such a magical time of year. But after they change colors, they fall. So after the trees make this beautiful display, their leaves are all gone. Why is that, Dad?
Great question. It's one of the most beautiful sights of the year. Now, for our curious adults listening, we're not just going with a simple answer. Today, we're diving deep into the crazy, complicated process called senescence. That's biological aging. The vital and frankly shocking physics of arboreal hydraulics. That's how water gets way up into the canopy. And why shedding those leaves is essential to stopping the crucial process of transpiration. It's all about survival. But for you, Cecilia, the super simple answer is this. The tree is hitting the emergency power button for winter. Winter's tough, right? Water is frozen and sunlight's low. A tree's leaves become a huge problem. They lose too much water and energy. So the tree shuts down the leaf factory, stops making the green stuff, the chlorophyll, seals off the leaf, and lets it go.
So it's not a nap. It's a huge, complicated hibernation.
Exactly. And the most important reason is water. Let's get into the complexity of that nap. We have to start with the biggest problem a tree faces in winter. It gets thirsty. When the ground freezes, the tree's roots can't suck up water anymore.
So how does it drink the rest of the year?
Through its leaves, in a process called transpiration. Leaves have thousands of tiny pores called stomata. Water evaporates out of these pores, and this creates a pulling force, a tension, due to the cohesion of the water molecules, something we covered in last week's episode about glue. That tension draws water all the way up from the roots through pipes called xylem. Think of it as a tree using its leaves like a drinking straw to pull up water and nutrients. A single large tree can pull up and release hundreds of gallons of water a day.
So the leaves are the straw.
Precisely. But in winter, if the leaves were still there, that straw would just be pulling air. The tree would literally dry out and die of dehydration. So to survive, the tree has to get rid of its leaves. Now, how does it know when to do this? Trees can sense the length of the day exposed to light, the photoperiod. During the fall, the days get shorter and the nights get longer.
But how does a tree know the photoperiod? Trees don't have eyeballs.
You're right, they don't need them because they have phytochromes, which are special light-sensitive proteins. Think of them as a chemical stopwatch. Phytochromes exist in two states, phytochrome red, which is an inactive state, and phytochrome far red, which is the active state. During the day, the phytochrome red is converted into phytochrome far red, but at night, some of that phytochrome far red converts slowly back to phytochrome red. The tree is actually measuring the length of the uninterrupted night. When the nights get long enough, the active phytochrome far red levels drop below a crucial threshold. That low level is a signal that registers fall is here and starts the shutdown process. The signal causes the tree to stop replenishing the chlorophyll. The green fades away, revealing the hidden colors. We have different colors. We have the yellows and oranges. These are due to the carotenoids. They've been there all along, acting as a sunscreen. And then in the leaves, we also have reds and purples. These are the anthocyanins. We talked about these too in your blue sky episode. The tree actively makes these pigments in the fall to protect the leaf while it recycles crucial nutrients like nitrogen back into the branches. And fun fact, trees that turn red are generally better at nutrient retrieval than trees that just turn yellow. Finally, the tree builds a specialized layer of cells called the abscission layer right at the base of the leaf stem. This seal cuts off the water's flow and leads to the leaf dropping.
Okay, that makes sense. But if the water's the problem, why don't pine trees lose all their needles?
That's a really good question too. But it's because pines, firs, and spruces, which are coniferous trees, have a completely different survival playbook. They have an evergreen resilience. Their leaves, which are known as needles, are specifically designed to deal with cold and drought. They have low transpiration. Their needles have a tiny surface area and are covered in a thick, waxy coating called a cuticle. This drastically cuts down on water loss through transpiration. And also, they have an anti-freeze protection. Even more critically, these needles contain high concentrations of dissolved sugars and salts. This works like biological antifreeze, lowering the freezing point of the water inside their cells. This prevents sharp ice crystals from forming and rupturing the cellular structures, which is what typically kills deciduous leaves. So, instead of shedding every fall, the conifer can keep its solar panels up all winter, making it much more efficient in places with short summers. But even coniferous trees shed their needles. They just don't all fall off at the same time.
That is seriously clever. So a tree's survival depends entirely on its leaves and the climate. How does a tree's whole yearly cycle change when it lives in a place that doesn't have winter?
Okay, now we're falling down the rabbit hole. We're used to 4 seasons, but that's just life in the temperate zones. Trees in different climates have radically different annual cycles. Let's look at 2 totally opposite places. First, tropical rainforests. Many trees here are evergreen because they have enough water year-round, but some do drop their leaves. They do it not because it's cold, but because of the extreme drought during the dry season. They're called drought deciduous. And I apologize if you hear noise right now, it's raining cats and dogs. We also have trees that live in a desert climate. These trees are extreme athletes. Take the Palo Verde tree, which literally means green twig. It spends most of the year practically leafless to avoid losing any water. Its trick? It does most of its photosynthesis through its green bark and branches, not just leaves.
That's a huge difference. When did we learn about the science behind all this changing?
Good question, because the science of leaf change is actually quite new, but the human fascination is ancient. People used to believe everything from the myth that frost somehow froze the color into the leaf to beautiful cultural stories. For example, the Algonquin people of North America have a beautiful myth that explains the colors. The myth says that a great bear is chased by hunters into the sky. As the hunt begins, the bear's blood spatters onto the forest, staining the leaves red, and the boiling water and fat from the cooking pot splatter onto the trees, turning them yellow. It wasn't until the early 20th century, thanks to botanists like Dr. Charles F. Hotz, that the scientific process was truly understood. He studied senescence, or biological aging in plants. Through careful work, he was able to prove that the colors weren't an accident of the weather. They were being revealed by the active, planned shutdown of the chlorophyll. It was a huge step in moving from folklore to biology. Although I kind of like the folklore a little bit. All this, from the tiny phytochrome to the massive scale of transpiration, means the seasonality of trees is an enormous force that shapes our world. The impact is global. All that photosynthesis makes forests massive carbon sinks, sucking up carbon dioxide during the growing season. This cycling is so significant that the scientists can actually measure breathing motion in the Earth's atmosphere every year as the Northern Hemisphere's forests cycle their leaves. Furthermore, the huge volume of transpiration means forests are giant water pumps, putting vast amounts of water vapor into the air every day. This process is critical. It creates clouds and rain, influencing weather patterns hundreds of miles away. This seasonal rhythm also defines our culture and economics. Think of the maple syrup connection. The entire industry is possible because when the maple tree enters dormancy, it converts stored starches into sugars for winter survival. This sugary sap is what we tap in the spring. Even the simple, pleasant smell of the forest floor in autumn, that's largely due to volatile organic compounds being released as the leaves decay, showing the forest successfully recycling organic matter to nourish the soil. The falling leaf represents the transition, loss, and the cycle of renewal, a truth that has inspired humans in every culture, from ancient myths to modern science.
What a lot of jobs one leaf has.
Yes, it does. What incredible deep dive, Cecilia. We started with a simple question about the backyard and talked about global climate engines and phytochromes. Why should you or any kid know this stuff? Because understanding the tree's annual cycle teaches you a great life lesson. You have to adapt to survive. The tree knows when to conserve and when to wait patiently, so it can explode back to life when the timing's perfect. Before we go, Cecilia has 3 trivia questions for all our listeners out there based on today's episode. Go for it, Cecilia.
Okay, put on your thinking caps. I'm going to test how much you retained. If you remember the answer, post it in the comment section. The first person with the correct answer posted gets their name mentioned in the next episode. Unless you're shy, then just tell us your favorite type of tree. We love trees. Okay, what is the name of the green pigment that trees stop making in the fall? What is the plant mechanism that measures the length of the night to trigger leaf drop? Which plant pigment acts like sunscreen for the leaf in the summer? Anthocyanins or carotenoids? And a special shout out to Bobcan Van Horn. That's a funny name. But good job for being the first person to answer the week's questions correctly.
Fantastic questions. And if you love learning about the Chlorophyll Crucible today, please help us out by leaving a quick 5-star review on your podcast app. It really helps more curious adults and kids find our show. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, Contemplative Chaos. We've slowed down on video making this season, but there is still a lot there to check out. And that's it for this episode of Why's That Dad? Thanks for joining us for another mind-expanding conversation. Until next time, stay curious, and God bless.
Bye.